How's that for optimism? If you're not an optimist, you don't belong in a legislative body. Almost every good thing that the Congress has done at some point seemed impossible. Yesterday, Speaker Nancy Pelosi said that she spoke to Joe Manchin about the op-ed piece he published a week ago in West Virginia, which was titled, "Why I'm Voting Against the For the People Act."
As I said to him, I've read the op-ed, you left the door open, and
you talked to him about it?
we're going to go right in.
Today, a group of optimists gathered in Charleston, West Virginia, and marched to Joe Manchin's office. They are led by Reverend William Barber. In a letter to Senator Manchin from the group, they urged the senator to support the For the People Act and asked him to use his power to open up, quote, a new path for justice by ending the use of the filibuster. Joining us now is our Hoppy Kercheval, the Dean of West Virginia Broadcasters and host of the radio program Metro News Talk Line. Also with us, Jonathan Kott. He served as a communications director and senior advisor to Senator Joe Manchin for 7 years. Jonathan, let me start with you since you worked with him every day in the Senate for 7 years. Nancy Pelosi says, she said she read the op-ed and she sees an opening. I read the op-ed and I don't see the opening. Did you see an opening in the op-ed that Nancy Pelosi could get in there and get him to go along with the For the People Act?
I don't think he's going to go along with the For the People Act, but Joe Manchin is always willing to work with anybody, any of his colleagues, Democrats or Republicans. I've seen him in the same week work with Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump. So, yeah, I think you're right. Every politician is optimistic, and Joe Manchin is nothing if he's not a constant optimist who always thinks he can bring people together and get a good bill and a good deal for the people of West Virginia.
Hoppy, what are your radio listeners saying about this? And is Joe Manchin representing their view of this?
Yeah, I think he is, because West Virginia is a conservative state for the most part. Manchin has crafted his political career being in the middle, not getting too far to the left and too far to the right. And I got to tell you, despite this rally today, there's not a lot of buzz on the For the People Act in West Virginia. This is West Virginia's last couple of elections have been very smooth. There haven't been any issues. So that issue isn't getting much traction here. So I'm sure that Manchin, who has great political instincts, feels like he's on the right side for his home state on this.
Jonathan, Joe Manchin keeps saying that he wants bills to be bipartisan, but in this Senate, that means getting 10 Republicans. So far, it looks like maybe he has 5 on what they're calling a framework for an infrastructure bill. It's not clear where the other 5 would come from. Is there a point in this process where Joe Manchin will abandon the attempt at a 60-vote version of the bill?
I don't know if he'll abandon it, but at some point I think he'll realize that, no, the Republicans are not willing to come to the table and are not willing to work with him. And he'll try to find a way to work with Senator Schumer and President Biden and craft a bill that he thinks is worthy of 10, 20, 30 Republicans supporting it. If they're not willing to come to the table and work with him, then I think he will find a way to, come to grips with reconciliation and pass a bill that helps West Virginia. I mean, Hoppy knows better than anybody. They need infrastructure in West Virginia. They need the roads and bridges. They need internet access. They need, hydro dams, water infrastructure. So he's not going to abandon his state for the sake of bipartisanship, but he wants to work with his Republican colleagues to make sure they get a bill that's good that Shelley Capito thinks is good for West Virginia and Joe Manchin thinks is good for West Virginia.
So, Hoppy, you're giving me the feeling that there probably won't be any movement from Joe Manchin on the voting rights bill, the For the People Act, but on infrastructure. Do you agree with Jonathan that if he can't get to 60 Republicans on infrastructure, he has to get some kind of infrastructure to bring back to West Virginia, and he'll do it with Democrats alone if he has to?
I think he will. And remember, he went with reconciliation on the jobs bill a couple of months back. And then he made a big deal out of coming back to West Virginia and saying, I'm bringing millions and millions of dollars to West Virginia counties and cities. He made a point of trying to illustrate that when he did interviews in West Virginia. So he's very aware of the infrastructure needs in West Virginia. He doesn't like all the Green New Deal stuff that's in the Biden plan. But I can very much see Joe Biden making a deal or doing whatever's necessary to get an infrastructure bill that brings back millions to West Virginia, channeling his best memory of Robert C. Byrd.
Jonathan, quickly before we go, what about voting rights? Will there be something on voting rights that Joe Manchin will support and join the Democrats on in the Senate?
Yeah, he supports the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And I would remind you, he was Secretary of State and he was governor. He knows how important election integrity is. And he's working hard to make sure that Republicans will come to the table and pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And he'll work with anybody to get a better bill, a stronger bill to protect voting rights.
What about the 60-vote threshold on the John Lewis bill?
I don't think Joe Manchin is going to budge on the filibuster. I've known him for a long time, and I've never heard him give an inch on that. I think he's going to do everything he can to get to 60 votes.
Jonathan Lott, Happy Kirschenwald, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
My pleasure.